So Alabama's obviously got a tremendous pass rush. How does that affect your guys, and how much more difficult is that from other opponents you face?
Well, in the SEC, every week is a challenge. Everybody has a guy up front or in the front seven that's always going to be, really good. For us, it's really more about just making sure our eyes are in the right place from the running back position. Always having that responsibility of understanding who our assignment is. That's where everything starts from. With everything for us. Up front is always going to be about making sure they're set to the right people, make sure they understand the protections as they come in and out of the game. We'll always do what we do. That's never going to change. But for the most part, making sure our footwork, eyes are always in the right place is going to be consistent for us.
Jimmy?
Coach, how hard is it for a running back to pick up a blitzing cornerback?
Just depends on the scheme of the protection that week. Sometimes you have a situation where your eyes start already into the boundary, where usually that's where they bring those corners, pressures. A lot of times you have to scan all the way backside. So a lot of times from a running back position, you can't be too anxious to get out because you got to make sure that no backside responsibility is coming. There could be a safety, there could be a corner, just depending on the formation that you end up getting. But for the most part, it's something that as you see it on film, you really in tune those guys throughout the week. So some weeks we get a team that is high corner pressures or low corner pressures, so you can be a little bit more, have a more sense of an urgency to get out sometimes. But this week, you got to be ready for everything with these guys.
And what impressed you most about Jabari Small against LSU?
Just the way, one, that he finished the game. That's one thing from last year to this year that we talked to Jabari about, was making sure you understand to take care of your body and be able to finish those football games. The second thing, the patience that he ran the ball with. He was extremely patient on making sure he turned some of those plays that normally would go for 1, maybe 0 yards at times to maybe +4 or +5 yards. And that comes from staying on his track, making sure you understood how to stay tight inside the hip of whoever those pullers were. And that's one thing he's been growing at this whole entire season. We're a vertical run team. We want to try to make sure we're always ahead of the chains, having plus yardage, and he did a really good job of making some of those 0-yard gains 3 or 4 yard gains.
Austin and Brent.
Joe, when you look at the offensive line last week, it seemed like they got a different push in the running game with that different lineup combination. What did you guys like about that? And then to kind of go back to Jimmy's question about pass protection for freshmen, it seems like it's always something they struggle with. Is that simply because if you're a really good running back in high school, you're just not doing a whole lot of pass protection because they're giving you the ball so much and you just haven't done it?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, we love it. We love to line up those guys getting pushed up front. You see one of the touchdowns that Jabari had down there inside the 5-yard line. The entire offensive line feet were all in the end zone, and that just shows it makes it a lot easier for us as a runner because by the time you go 2 or 3 steps, you're already basically have scored. And in those short yardage situations as well. Those short yardage situations, we were able to push the pile, we were able to move people, get movement, distortion, whatever you want to call it. We were able to create some kind of movement where grass was created for the runner. So that's always good. For the running back perspective, as far as a young guy in pass pro, that's always going to be difficult. Just for the simple fact, training your eyes. A lot of those guys in high school, they're such talented runners that they don't even think about pass pro. Matter of fact, a lot of high schools don't even ask them to pass pro, just for the simple fact they want to make sure that they got the best out of them when they get a chance to give them the football. So that's one thing that, the Dylan Sampsons of the world and the Justin Williams of the world, they still continue to learn about exactly where they're supposed to place their eyes. And then when they get to the right responsibility, it's really more about being physical and moving your feet as well. So you got to have great feet, you got to have great hand placement and all those different things, because if not, it's not going to come out successful for you.
Coach, you mentioned Jabari's patience. How hard is that for a guy to grasp in terms of being patient in the run game and not just slamming it up where the hole's supposed to be? Because you had a couple runs that bounced outside for big plays. How hard is that for guys to really grasp the patience part in the run game when it's a vertical run game?
Man, it's really hard, especially when you don't come from that world that we're living in. Our system is a little bit different than a lot of people across the country. You take a guy that's a young guy, as a high school guy, a lot of times they want to rush everything, and especially the speed of the game. The bodies are moving extremely fast, crossing your face. To ask a guy to slow down his mental, ask a guy to slow down his footwork some, to make sure he can understand if you don't slow down, you're not going to allow those linemen to get to the second level. You're not going to be able to deliver those blocks for us. So that's extremely hard. And Jabari's got a lot of experience. You know, been playing running back a very long time with his high school and college. So he's been able to see a lot of different looks. And now he has a better feel. He really feels bodies well around him. Jalen Wright is still growing as a runner. He's starting to feel that a little bit more as well. Sometimes the plays will take you outside just because you have some patience about yourself. But for the most part, we're always trying to fit those back inside.
Coach, you talked a little bit about freshman and pass protection. What was that moment like for Dylan with the hit that missed the safety and the hit Hendon? What was that moment like for him as sort of a learning moment for him in pass pro?
Well, great learning moment, you know, and he made the best out of it when he picked up the ball and went ahead and turned it to a plus yardage. But for the most part, he just never got his eyes to the opposite side, and that's one thing we talk about. You know, in that environment, you know, big time environment, LSU, he's back at home. He gets his eyes fixated on one defender as opposed to understanding as a secondary or another read to that entire protection. It just never got his eyes back over there. By the time he saw it, it was too late. But he did, you know, he didn't make a bad play worse. He picked up the ball, he got vertical. He turned it into something positive. And, you know, like you said, that's something that we talked to him about on the sideline. Obviously, Hendo talked to him about it. But, you know, that's something that, you know, he was embarrassed. And to make sure that it never happens again, I mean, he was in tune in the rest of the game. He's been in tune this whole practice this week as well.
Last one, Vince. We got Coach Garner waiting.
How much is the variety that you guys have shown in the run game help your running backs, like you had McCoy and Squirrel and Fant, get some of those handoffs and short little tosses? How much does that help your guys after that?
Oh, it helps a ton. Anytime you can present eye candy or different ball carriers to a defense, you know, it always kind of keeps you off balance. That doesn't mean just the person standing back there next to the quarterback is always going to carry the ball. So it always presents a different picture for those guys. Also, too, having Hendo as a threat as a runner, too, I mean, that's always going to be really one of the best things that we do. So now it just takes a little bit more pressure off us as a runner. Those guys don't fit the box as fast. Those safeties can't be as aggressive because, you know, you got Hendo back there who can run or throw it, especially on the play action pass. So, you know, that's always going to be good for us if we can try to, you know, distribute the ball to different people.
Thank you, Coach.
No problem.